This is a huge episode. I like Cub said, we're very thankful that you stopped by, and we know that it's kind of challenging because you are 6 hours ahead of us. You're somewhere in an undisclosed location across the pond.
Yeah. Pretty cool spot, man. I'm not complaining. So out of harm's way.
Yeah, that's true, and we talked about that pre-show. But on top of being the coach of the year for the Chicago Sky, 2019 Coach of the Year, you're also the general manager, and we've seen a few people handed the keys to a franchise like that in the past, and we've seen some not so successful attempts at that. Namely, I point the finger at like a Tom Thibodeau, who everything went wrong for that guy. But I'm curious, as the general manager and the coach, somebody who runs the front office operations and then is also in charge of coaching those players that you could feasibly cut or trade at any second. What are some of the challenges that you face?
I mean, some of the challenges that I face. Well, first of all, I want to say shout out to Tom Thibodeau. I know him, and
Do you?
he's always yeah, he's always been pretty nice with me. So I mean, and I've always followed him. So
Yikes, Sauce.
I was we were he when I was with Minnesota, he was actually with on the men's side with Minnesota. So every time I got a chance to just talk to him a little bit, I always he always showed me love. So
That makes
just shout
sense.
out to him.
Well, no, honestly,
but
shout out Tom Thibodeau. He made Bulls basketball watchable for a couple of years, and now it's been
yeah.
awful ever since.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I hope it turns around. But I mean, but to get back to your question, man, uh, I understand that you have a staff for a reason, and you have to listen to them. I know they've given me as far as control, like decision control, as far as the general management and putting together the roster and being the head coach. But it's really if you have a plan and you listen to the people that are around you, and you don't get caught up in having those two hats on and making your head bigger than it is. And I think being having a plan and just being disciplined to that plan, but also being flexible, because some things you can't control. I think it helps you. It helps you, and listening to the people that you have around you. You have good, smart, intelligent people around you that really know the game, and so you have to have an open mind to different ideas. And but you just have to be decisive in the things that you want to do as well. So I think it's a tough job. I don't think people understand how tough it is, because it's two different things. A coach, you have to
Right.
coach for now. General manager, you have to think for now and the future. So how do you balance that? It's tough, and that's some of the issues that I have to deal with to this day.
So,
Yeah, and
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask real quick, Cub. We kind of saw one of those big decisions you had to made. We saw one of the decisions that you had to make. I'm trying to figure out all the words today. With that general manager hat on, when you traded for Katie Lou Samuelson this past season, you know how how difficult. I guess I want to ask, how difficult is it to be like, I'm sorry, we got to trade you to a different team. You know what I mean? Like, you sit down with somebody that you have coached, that you know personally, that you talk to on a daily basis. You're like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I think the issue was like, and I don't think that a lot of people really took this into consideration, but the biggest thing about it was the CBA. The new CBA changed everything.
Okay.
You had players that we had to pay. You had like our all stars. We had two of our three all stars and three of our four all stars that have been all stars. So Steph is a two-time all star, and they were three of those four players were free agents. And so because the CBA it went up, it went up 30%, but their salaries could actually go up 85%.
Okay.
So it's like putting a circle into a square peg. How do you get everything in it and still pay them? And so what actually hurt us is that we couldn't afford who was on a rookie contract, a minimum contract, Astu Indoor. She got a 3-year maximum deal. So her her salary went up 200%.
Oh
And so
wow.
we couldn't afford her. We couldn't afford her. So the
Right.
thing is that we needed somebody to replace that. Like we needed somebody to replace that. We wanted to pay our all stars,
Mhm.
and we did. We were successful in doing that. And because of the change in the CBA, we had to get someone to replace Astu, and we but on a rookie contract, and we were able to do that. But the casualty effect of that was Katie Lou Samuelson. I think if the CBA doesn't change, our team stays the same. Honestly, I think our team stays the same, but it's something that we had to do, and we saw uh, Azura Stevens as someone with not only all-star potential, but we thought that she had a higher ceiling than a lot of players in the league, and we thought she fit a mold like Astu, but we thought that she could probably be, be a little bit better. And also the fact that she's American and that she's not going to miss any time playing with the European national teams and stuff like that, it actually strengthened the case to trade for. And so, I hated to see Astu go because she was a part of the staff. I was a part of the staff that drafted her back in San Antonio in 94. I mean, in 2014.
Mhm.
And the fact that, we were happy that she got a maximum contract. We were happy that, we were able to help her realize some of the dreams that she wanted to do when she got here. But, those are the tough challenges that a general manager has to make. And as bad as I didn't want to trade Katie Lou, we just had to jump on the Stevens train.
Yeah.
So, as a head coach and a GM, have you ever just been at practice or a game and you're like, when have you ever shot that shot? When have you ever shot that shot? And just go, you do that again, I'm going to trade you tomorrow. Oh, Patrick Ewing, have you ever shot that shot? When have you
No, no, I've never. So I guess the fact that I've been a player before, I know how fans can get and how they feel it. They're into the game and they know it. And so they could be up and down. They could be with you or so against you in 20 seconds. And
Mhm.
so me being a coach, I try to put a pressure on the players and the pressure on the players to perform, but also understanding that you know um, how hard they work, and not only how hard they work, but how much they use the game as an outlet or stress relief, or they use the game to kind of escape. And so by doing that, they have to figure out things about themselves on the fly. Now, sometimes I get on them for taking bad shots or doing things that I don't think helps our team, but sometimes I give them a kind of leeway to grow, especially when I see how much they work every day, every day, every day. And but I do get on them about shots, but not to a point where I want to trade them.
I was just trying to think of like something funny to say to be like, you know what, you do something dumb again, I'm going to trade you. Or I'm getting sick of you, I'm going to trade you. Because you got all
No,
that. I just got to ask.
I know I would never put
Oh, we know.
the T word. The T word is a tough word because you never want them to leave, like
Yeah.
you never want them to want to leave. It's almost equivalent to, like if me and my wife just had our anniversary yesterday. If I ever got so mad at my wife and I'm like, hey, look, you do that again, I'm going to divorce you. I'd never say that because I never want to leave this place, man, because I know if something ever happens, I'm the one that's getting kicked out of the house. So no,
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I
I'm
wouldn't do
trading
that
this
to the
marriage.
players, I
Well,
wouldn't do that to the
congratulations on your
players,
anniversary.
I
Congratulations on your
appreciate it, man.
anniversary. Yeah, man.
I appreciate it.
So you see like the Joe Budden tweet from a couple of weeks ago, and
Yeah,
he's basically saying Seattle needs a basketball team. You got Brianna
right.
Stewart responding to it saying, hey, we do have a professional basketball team. And you
Right.
have people saying that Minnesota hasn't won a championship since the Twins did it in 1991, when in actuality, the Minnesota Lynx are a very successful franchise with 4, I believe, championships in the past decade or so. So,
Right, right,
as
right.
someone who works so hard for the improvement of this sport and the improvement of this league, how frustrating is it that people really ignore what your league does?
I think it's tough because it's so if you ask anybody, and this is the media included. Okay, Seattle basketball hasn't won a championship. They'll say in over 40 some years, and the time between 79 and 2019 or 18 or when they won it, and they don't count. They don't really count it. 2018, they don't count it as a basketball championship or a major sport championship. And so this just goes to show how not only how chauvinistic like we are as a society, but even we are as media. Everybody, it can be the same thing in the same breath. It can be somebody say, "I'm for women's basketball. I'm for women's basketball," and they'll say, "Hey, Seattle hasn't won a championship since '79." Like how could you say that? How could you say that? Or Minnesota, when you're saying, "Oh, these great coaches like Popovich and Phil Jackson," and you go Rudy Tomjanovich with 2 titles, and and nobody will mention Cheryl Reeve. Like nobody will mention Cheryl Reeve, and I just don't understand that.
It's baffling.
I just never understand. Yeah, it's baffling because what they've given to the game, and how hard it is. Like being in a championship environment and knowing how hard it is to come back down in a series, or to come back, or how close these games are, how tactical and how athletic and how physical these games are, and to realize it's not as appreciated the way it should be, just because it's a woman. Like that's just because. I mean, for me, it's sad. It's sad because you can have the same people saying, "Yeah, we need to talk about women more, or we need to put it on TV more." Well, it's there. The opportunity is there. It's just, are you going to do it? It's just that, are you going to do it, or are you going to take the easier way out and say, "Hey, we feel more comfortable because it's guys. We'll rather show 2-on-2 or 3-on-3, and as long as they're guys, like that's what the people want to see. That's what the people want to see." And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that because long before I was in the WNBA, I was watching women's basketball. So, I mean, it's just the way, it's just the society we live in. So, I mean, I don't get it, but that's the way it is.
That's a perfect transition into our next question.
Yeah.
So the month of April, we do Women Athletes Month. We do women interviews other than April, just throw that out there. But we talk to them, and a lot of them keeps preaching normalize women's sports, normalize it. And here in the Missed Call, we want to shed more light on women's sports. We think they deserve it. They need a bigger platform because they work just as hard as the men. And I wanted to ask you, how do we normalize women's sports?
I think you just put it out there. I think if you made it, let's say, like if you put it on prime time, you put it on TV, you put it on ABC, you put it on ESPN, and not ESPN 3, 4, Deportes, you put it on ESPN, and
ESPN1.
Just put it there. Yeah, ESPN with the ESPN without the numbers.
Yeah.
So you put it on ESPN. And so you're gonna get maybe a little backlash. You know, say, well, why did they have this on? You may get a little bit, but after time, those voices are going to minimize, because you have to have confidence and faith that when you watch it, if somebody actually watches it, they're going to appreciate it. Hey, look, when I was in college, and on the days that I didn't have classes, we used to put it on ESPN. And they used to play SportsCenter back to back to back to back. I don't know if they still do it now, but they used to do.
I think they
used to do it back to back to back to back, and you would watch it. You
I
just got
remember
through watching the same thing 30 minutes ago, and you would watch it. And this is just a person sitting down talking. And it didn't matter if it was a man speaking or a female journalist speaking. It did not matter. We would watch it. As long as it's sports, we would watch it. Well, you got to have the same confidence that they're going to do the same thing when it comes to men's basketball, when it comes to women's basketball, when it comes to women's soccer, when it comes to men's soccer. If you're an athlete or an athletic enthusiast, you're going to watch sports. It's just the way of the world. It's just how it's going to work. And they have to have confidence and just give them the platform that they're giving everybody else.
I go to DePaul, and obviously the women's team's better than the men's, and they're more electrifying than the men because the men are garbage. I've said this in my sports classes. I'm like, the women deserve to play at Wintrust. The men should be playing at McGrath Phillips Arena. It's terrible, and they're so fun to watch, and they're so underrated. It's not fair.
No, I mean it's a story in every game. It's a story in every sport, and we have to give the platform to hear those stories. I mean, DePaul women's basketball, like I personally, I know their staff. You know, I coach. I coach a player that played at DePaul.
Quigley?
And so she and so she goes, you know, she goes back. I talk to Bruno sometimes. He always gives me advice on players that he's played against or he's coached and things of that nature when it comes around draft time and things of that nature. And I know, you know, the work that they put into it. I know how, you know, intelligent that staff is, and what the culture around that team is. And I just think that, you know, it needs to be appreciated, women's basketball, and understood that, you know, everybody's story is different, but everybody's story deserves to be told.
Exactly.
Doug Bruno was on a few weeks ago on the pod, and he had some great stories. He was awesome. Now I got to ask, how come you didn't draft Stonewall or Campbell?
I mean,
Why you can't put him in that spot?
No, it's a good question. It's a good question. So we liked them both. We liked them both, and it was a couple other players that we liked, right? And we didn't have a second round pick. We We traded our second round pick last year to get Jontel Lavender in last year's offseason, or right before the preseason, and or right after the preseason, sorry. And so we didn't have a second round pick, and Kaya Gillespie, who we didn't think she was projected to be late first round, early second round pick. We didn't expect her to be on the board, and so we wanted a point guard. And we just didn't expect her to be on the board, but we had her rated pretty high. And the fact that we didn't take either players because we just saw two players that we felt were probably more ready for the WNBA game, and Kaya falling to us, and Japrice, we felt like we wanted depth at the point guard position, somebody a little speedster that could help us out. So. That's the reason. Nothing against their talents. We feel like if they keep working, they'll get their shot. Maybe not now, especially with this pandemic. And who's to say? We probably had an opportunity to bring them in for training camp in a normal situation, but because of all this, how this stuff is worked out, that it's a shame that, you know, they didn't get their names called. But I think down the road you'll probably see them in a training camp here or there.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
James, before we get too far away from the subject, I wanted to kind of, I guess, have a response to what you were saying about normalizing women's sports. I think you nailed it right on the head when you said, if it's on, people will watch. And people who say that they're sports fans, and then turn around and dog women in sports, I've always said, you're not a sports fan.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's that. And I also wanted to point out the fact that it might have been the last CBA, but in one of the last collective bargaining agreements, it was agreed upon between ESPN and the WNBA to air 44 games throughout the season. That included the playoffs and the finals and the regular season, 44 games.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA, they get to broadcast all of their playoff games no matter what. You get what I'm saying? Like, the inequalities are set up, and it's like ESPN is helping, but incrementally. You know what I mean? It's not enough to like vastly change things. I don't know. I guess that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a process.
Yeah,
I don't want it to come across saying that, you know, I'm bashing ESPN or anything like that. I think it's a process, and I also think it's a business. And
without a doubt.
so what I'm trying to, like, you know, convince when I talk to people, convince the public, is that people are going to watch it. Now we have all these things as far as analytics and this and that, and it's probably going to say, you know, I'll go out on a limb for you if I feel that it's worth it. Now let me get this straight. Like, I really do think that ESPN is doing a great. I think they're doing a good job. I think they're doing a good job. I think anybody could do better. Like, you know, I think anybody could do better. Like, somebody can say, yeah, you know, they may say I'm a good father, but I can always do better. Or they may say I'm a
Right.
good coach, but I can always do better. So it's not to be overly critical of them and say, you know, that, you know, they're not doing good, or like, I think they're giving us a platform, and I do appreciate what they're giving, but I
Without a
just
doubt.
always thought, I just think it could be, you know, better. And I think that if you put something out there and you don't go all out and say, hey, this is if you don't go all out and say, hey, we're doing enough where this is good, and we don't trust what we're seeing. But if you go all out, I'm just telling you, just from a basketball enthusiast, someone who spent his whole life playing in the men's basketball world, that if you put women's basketball on TV in those major time slots, people are going to watch it.
Yeah,
Like, they're
if you
going to
build
watch
it,
it.
they will come.
Yeah, if you build it, they will come. And that's the only thing that I'm saying. And not to say that they're not. Not to say that they're not. I think they, you know, I think if you ask anybody in the WNBA, we love ESPN and our partnership with ESPN and everything
Oh
that
yeah.
they're doing for us. We always want more, and it's maybe us being greedy, but I just know how good the game has been. The women's basketball game has been, not only to me but to my family, and you know, we have the best fans, and they're so enthusiastic, and they're so for us, and they're really pure basketball fans, and I just want to see the WNBA on that type of scale, and I feel like it's on its way, and and it's on its way with the help of ESPN. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah. And I wouldn't call it greedy. I would just say it's knowing your worth.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's
Right.
better. That's better.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely. And I also wanted to say too, and there are so many great players in the WNBA right now. And I don't make
Yeah.
this next comment. I don't make this next comment to discredit anything that any other player is doing right now. But you talk about putting it on TV and people will watch. You have the player right now that people will tune in to watch for. Like Sabrina Ionescu in college has been maybe the most highly covered female athlete in a while. You know what I mean? Everybody's keyed in. Her jerseys were sold out on draft night. Like, people are keyed in on this person. Why not try to market the league around this person? You know what I mean?
I mean, I understand that.
Yeah,
I
and
understand that,
again,
but
I don't make that because there's so many great players, but you have
and that's
the one that everybody knows, like the facial recognition. You know?
but that's the thing. And so that's the thing that probably concerns me the most, is that uh like, with all the pro players, this is a pro game, and
Yeah,
I think she's going to be great. But sh- it's nothing against her, but the pro players that have laid the groundwork for the WNBA, their faces need to be out there more, and
without a doubt.
for it to be a college player to be your most recognizable face. Uh, I don't know. But I think she's going to be a good player. I think she's going to be a great player. But it's too many players that have laid the groundwork for that to be your most recognizable face. And I know that some of the players are probably feeling the same way. They want their faces to be out there. But right now, the women's college game is probably being more publicized, or faces in college are being more publicized, and that shouldn't be the case, where you
Right.
lose your luster once you play in the WNBA. Like, that shouldn't be the case. So, and you know, I appreciate anybody who can take the WNBA to another level, but um, it's for me, it's the pro players need to be put out there like that. I could tell you one story. One story. It was a rookie in Minnesota, and we were at an All-Star event, Minnesota Timberwolves, and
Okay.
Maya Moore was at this All-Star event, and this rookie was a first-round draft pick. I mean, he was a first-round draft pick. You could have seen the way his eyes lit up, trying to get Maya Moore's attention for a picture. Now, this is a first-round draft pick,
Yeah.
NBA first-round draft pick, and he was so anxious to meet Maya Moore and take a picture with Maya Moore and shake hands with Maya Moore. And but when you're a real basketball person, that's the feeling that you get around these players, around these top-level players that maybe for the normal, Joe Blow who doesn't really watch sports like that, it probably doesn't mean anything. But for basketball enthusiasts, it means a lot.
Yeah, and again, and that's an awesome story, and I'm sure I would freak out if I was in the same room with Maya Moore too. I do want to just kind of run back to that comment and just say I didn't mean it in any sort of like disrespectful way. I guess I was just looking at it from like a business
for sure.
perspective
For sure.
from the WNBA, because I recognize that there are pros that have laid the groundwork and pros that need to be recognized as the faces of the WNBA, right? I guess just looking at it from that business perspective, that marketing perspective, I guess that's where I was coming from with it.
But you have to think about it. If that means, for me, it's saying that the WNBA isn't good enough, or the players in the WNBA isn't good enough. If you're taking a player and you're putting everything behind them, marketing them, and they haven't played a game. They haven't played a game. And that's putting an unwanted X on their back, or a target on their back, when, you've had all these great players, Aja Wilson, Diamond DeShields recently, like all these recent players. And then the older players, Courtney Vandersloot, Candace Parker, Brittany Griner, who went through college and did the same thing, and did great things too. And now when it's time, you say, okay, let's forget about them and let's put everything behind this player who hasn't played a minute. And I don't think it's really fair to the vets in the league. And I think if you ask her, she probably wouldn't think it's fair, because she's a competitor and she wants to prove her worth. So she's coming at, like, the people that's coming in, when she comes in, she knows that people are going to come at her. So she's ready. Like, you see how competitive she is. But you have to give them a chance to prove it. You have to give them a chance to prove it. And I don't think that you say, okay, we're going to market her. Well, what about, Vandersloot, Diamond DeShields? What about all these players? Candace Parker, NECA, Brittany Griner, Brianna Stewart. What about these players? So when you have this player who hasn't done anything compared to what they've done on this level of play, you can't say this is the face of the league. Like, you can't say that. You can't do that.
I wouldn't think of her as the face, though. You're not saying,
but if you market it like that, if you market and say, come and see her or come and do this, that's what you're doing. And for me, it's not sending a great message for what we're good enough to be.
Not at all.
So yeah. So it's just, this is my opinion. This does not represent the opinions of the WNBA, neither of ESPN, but these are just my opinions.
No, I respect the hell out of that whole opinion.
I do too. And part of all this is learning. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I probably made a really boneheaded comment right there, but I learned a lot in just having that conversation with you, James.
No, it's everybody sees. I will admit that she is probably one of the most recognizable faces in women's basketball in the U.S. And it's attributed to the way she plays and how much she was on TV and what you were able to see for the last 3 or 4 years. So it's nothing against her. What I'm just thinking about is just for the welfare and the health of the league.
Right.
That's all I'm thinking about. But nothing against that player. And I know her coach. I coached with her coach. We won a championship together in Minnesota. And he's good for point guards, and he's going to do a great job with her. And so we're just excited. We'll be excited to play against them.
So you've been around basketball your entire life. What's the difference between coaching men's professional basketball and women's professional basketball?
That's a good question. I've been asked that question before and never had to put a lot of thought into it. But now being an assistant coach and being a head coach is different. And so this is the first time I've been asked this as a head coach. I think I don't know. I would approach it the same. Like we have great chemistry and a great dynamic with our group, and coaching them has been a pleasure. I don't know if it is a big difference. Some people say, yeah, men are more like this and women are more like this, but I don't really see the big difference. I see high level athletes that you have to be playing for, and they will follow you if you are playing and you know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think it goes for men and women. And they're going to pay attention to your work ethic, and they're going to buy in if they know the plan and they see the plan. And I think it's the same. I just think it's the same on how you approach them or how you coach them.
Right.
It may be different as far as spacing and timing and things of that nature, but I think basketball is just an art form, and you can look at, for example, I just sum it up like this: it's a big difference in coaching Chicago Sky and coaching Washington in the same league. It's a big difference in coaching those teams. It's a big difference in coaching Chicago Sky and Dallas. And you can ask what's the difference is. The difference is the personalities, where they are in their career, how long the team has been together. And you can say the same thing for Golden State and the Lakers.
Right.
What's the difference in coaching LeBron and coaching, Steph Curry? So I don't think it's really. I think the difference is more about personality and team personality as opposed to men and women.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think you could also point to the structures of the league a little bit, right? So,
Yeah.
And the way that I mean that is a large portion of the WNBA, once the regular season is over, once the playoffs are over, a large portion of the WNBA has to go overseas to either make supplemental income or to continue to improve their game. Now, I believe it was 2018 after the regular season, Breanna Stewart went overseas and she had her Achilles pop, and then she's out for the rest of the year. I guess bringing it back.
That was against us. That was against us in the Final Four.
Okay.
Yeah, I coached against her. So the funny thing is I coached against her in that game, and it was in the semifinals. It was in the Final Four, and it was in the semifinals, and that was a sad day because I know Stewie, and what people don't know is the next year she was actually coming to play with us, and so I got a chance to coach her this year, and so she had to.
That team is loaded, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we're pretty loaded. We're pretty loaded. 7 all-stars.
And he knows it. And he knows it.
Can't deny it. But so no, I saw that. But that's something that they have to go overseas to make supplemental income. Yeah, it's different setup, different kind of setup.
Well, and then you as the GM, you have to sit there and try to mitigate those risks as the WNBA GM and coach. You're like, okay, I'm going to coach you now, and then I'm going to coach you in Russia, and then we're going to hope and pray to God that everything goes well. It's different. Where in the NBA, you have load management where you have LeBron sitting out because his hamstring is cramping.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about coaching with the Katerinberg is that the organization, the coaches, and everybody, they do a good job of not, running. I guess you could say we're deep too, but they do a good job of taking care of the players and making sure that it's the top of the line staff to make sure that they're in a good place. So when people send their players to a Katerinberg, they don't really worry about them as much. being, worn out or being tired or
Right.
being worn down.
Yeah.
The other team that she played for before, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was the case or anything like that. I don't know, but I just know being in the organization of Catherine for the last 3 years, they've done a good job of monitoring and having a top of the line staff as far as training staff and doctors and things of that nature. The general management, all the way down to the head coach, to everybody, does a great job. So if but it's not the same everywhere. So yeah,
Right.
I'm sure it scares coaches. I'm sure it scares coaches because a lot of players, they go over there and they play 35, 40 minutes a game, and by the time they get over, to WNBA, sometimes it makes them for a better, more, in shape and a high level athlete. But sometimes they can get over there and they can be a little tired. So you gotta monitor it. So, but
Right.
it's women's basketball right now. That's where we at.
Gotcha.
This season isn't that long, though, is it?
It's actually, depending on the countries, it can be from October to May. So it's the opposite. I think if you talk to certain players, they're gonna say, yeah, I play 11 months out of the year, and that's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Definitely a lot of wear and tear on the body. Go ahead, Cub.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's a lot of wear and tear on the body. It can over the course.
My bad. I cut you off twice. I was gonna say, because I know they come back and then they start the season again. And then I was looking at it yesterday and it only said like 13 games. I'm like, that sounds wrong, and I must have been looking at something wrong.
No, it's when you play overseas, it depends on, like, they have leagues. So so each country has their own league. And so in that league, it depends on how many teams they have in the league, but you're going to play them twice.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And so let's say a country has 14 teams in the league. So you're going to play the 13 games twice. That's going to be 26 games. So that's one league. Then during that league, you have something called the cup. And so and that's a country's cup, and that's single elimination. And so that goes on, all through the year. And so it's just a single elimination, and you play the cup games like once every few weeks or whenever you can get them in until the end of the season, and it's the two finalists playing. Now, the two best teams of each country typically play in a European Cup, where they play against other countries. They play against the two best teams, and that's another season, and they normally play in the middle of the week. And
is that like Champions League for soccer?
Exactly. It's exactly like Champions League. And so you have two. So you have the Euro League, which is the highest, like the Champions League, and then you have the second one is the Euro Cup. And that's normally for the second tier teams, like the third and fourth place teams of every country. And they play in the Euro Cup, and it's normally more countries involved in that. And it's so you're playing actually in 3 different leagues all year. And so that's what the makeup is of making it 7-8 months. That's why it's so long. And so it's definitely a place I think a lot of our WNBA players use to get better. Not only like to have more income, but also to get better as a player. And this is sometimes what you see when you see players that come back so improved, like Adira Kahambi or Cheyenne Parker or somebody like that really that game kind of explodes from one year to the next. And you're like, wow, how did they improve like that? But that's typically the reason, because they had more responsibility with the teams that they played on. And they were playing 35 minutes, so they got a chance to really get out and just know themselves and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
That really is awesome. That's a lot of basketball, and if my body could hold it, that would be a lot of fun. But I've got Derrick Rose graham cracker knees. We've all just got done watching The Last Dance with Michael Jordan and the '98 Bulls, and one of the characters, if you will, in the documentary was Horace Grant, who has some pretty iconic eyewear. But we're interested, who's got the more iconic eyewear, Horace Grant or Diamond Shields?
I think when it's all said and done, I think it'll be Diamond. she just has a swag about herself,
Yeah.
like something with the speed and the quickness and the guard type, like it's Horace was a big man, and no, nothing against him, but I think Diamond being an all WNBA player, all-star player in just her second year, I think the sky's the limit, and Horace he had a formidable career, has 5 rings, and was an all star. I want to say in his last year in Chicago or first year in Orlando. I forgot, but I think as far as like featured players, Diamond ceiling is probably a little bit higher. Her already attaining to be an All WNBA player, and the fact that social media is so big in today's game, where you're going to see her more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's going to be. It's going to be more. It's going to be more visual to her. So I think she's going to be probably more iconic with the eyewear, and the fact that she's with Oakley now is a big thing.
Oh, is she?
So yes,
That's
yeah.
dope.
So
That's dope.
that's big. I don't think that's ever happened for her. So.
Well, I'm even thinking like T-shirts and stuff. Like you could literally just throw a pair of glasses on a T-shirt, and you'd be like, "What do you mean? It's my Diamond
for
Shield
sure.
shirt." You know?
Yeah, no, for sure,
Yeah.
you could do that, and I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't do that pretty soon. But the rest,
I just want my royalties if that ends up being a T-shirt.
the thing that I can say is it's going to happen, but like the one thing that you learn from watching the documentary, and maybe the first thing from episode 1 is all she has to do is worry about basketball. If she worry about basketball, the rest it's just like the shirt you got on, the Jordan. He said, "Yeah, hey, look, he just worried about playing basketball, and all that other stuff followed." So
Yeah.
I think if she just focuses on the game and just let it play out, then I think the sky's the limit, and you'll see more of her.
Going off the Last Dance, we all know the Jordan LeBron GOAT debate. I want to ask you, who's the WNBA's GOAT?
WNBA's GOAT.
Ooh.
No one talks about it.
Well, I honestly, I think you can talk about. I think you could talk about Maya. I think you could talk about. I think you could talk about Diana. But for me personally, and it's nothing against them. I coach Maya. Maya would be very high on my list because of the things she does and how she approaches the game. And I coach Diana too. So and the way she approaches the game is great. That's a tough question for me. But for me, I was around the league and watching the league from the beginning, and nobody ever had me at all like Cynthia Cooper did. The way she dominated the game from the beginning for the first 4 years, I was so surprised. Like I was like, wow, this is amazing. And for her to keep doing it every year for 4 years, it was like she was just amazing. Nobody could beat them. Like nobody could actually beat them. And for her to go on a team where she probably wasn't expected to be the star, because when WNBA was developed, all the talk I heard was around Cheryl Swoops. And I knew, Cheryl Swoops from her days in college, and it was like, man, she was amazing. And but when you saw Cynthia Cooper, it was like, who is this? Like, who is this person? Like, nobody could beat them. They had won 4 in a row, and she was the best player. And it was like, I knew who Cheryl Swoops was, and it was like a 1A, 1B type, because Cheryl Swoops was great also. And but I just hadn't seen anyone dominate for 4 years in a row without letting anyone win. Kind of like Jordan did when he played for those 6 years. He didn't let anyone win. And so that's what I qualify as like GOAT, like, if you don't give anybody else a turn, like if nobody has a chance to win,
sharing.
It's just nothing. Yeah, it's nothing you can do. And I think that says a lot. But afterwards, if you ask me anytime after that, I would probably say Maya. I just being around Maya, man, and just watching her work, it was amazing. It was
Yeah.
amazing being able to put players on your back, and the way she approached practice every day. The way she approached practice every day was like. So those would be my three. Those would be my three
For sure.
if I'm cheating. If I'm
Your Mount
cheating, that's yeah.
There you go.
That's
There you
it.
go.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead, Cub. I think we only have a few more questions if you have the time for it, James.
I got the time, man.
All right.
Got
All right.
nothing
We
but-
appreciate it. We appreciate it.
I gotta ask, where'd the name Coco come from?
It's hey, so this is a funny story. This is a funny story, man. When I was born, I was like you guys' color, right?
Okay.
And so they took me from my mom, and they put me, I don't know where they put me, but when she got me back, I was so dark. I was like way darker than now. And when they took me, they take those pictures, they do, the feet prints and the footprints and handprints and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I have a picture, and I was white. I was absolutely white. But the next picture I took, I was in my father's arms, and I was so black. I was so black. And so when they gave me back to my mother, they woke me up. My father gave me back to my mother because they brought me in, gave me to my father, and then my father gave me to my mom. She was like, "Oh, look at my little Coco. It's like they dropped some chocolate milk in him, And she was like, "We're gonna call him Coco." And my dad was like, "No, we're not. Like, we're calling him Junior. Like, this is not happening. Like, this is not happening." But since my mom ran the household, I was known for the rest of my life as Coco, like high school, elementary.
So from day one, it was
college.
Coco.
From day one, even before they named me, she named me Coco, and my mother nor my father or anyone in my family has ever called me James. Not a day in my life.
Really?
The first person to
Not
call
even
me
when you're
James,
in trouble?
No, never, man. It was always, it's just the tone that they yell Coco in, but never my cousins, aunts, uncles. And for a long time, a lot of my teachers called me that, and got to college, so everybody knows. I have a funny story about my cousin, my younger cousin, and he was like, "Yeah, I know your cousin James Wade," and he was like, "Who?" My cousin was only like 12, and this is a first cousin. He was like, "Who?" He was like, "James Wade." He was like, "I don't have a cousin named James Wade," and he was like, "Yeah, Coco." He was like, "Oh yeah, Coco, that is his name." Like, it was a funny story because my cousin was in like elementary, close to junior high, and I'm like in college, and he didn't even know my name. And so my wife is the first person to ever call me James in my family. First person.
Can't get her to say Coco?
Yeah.
Huh?
I said you can't get her to say Coco?
Nah, she hates it, man.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's a good nickname then. We're big food guys. Well, I guess we'll end on this. We're big food guys, and you've traveled all over Europe. Where's the best place to get food in Europe?
Oh man. That's a good. Paris is good. Ekaterinburg in Russia has great restaurants, but the best place, if you want to just can't walk, it's Italy, man.
Yeah,
It's Italy. Oh my gosh, like the food in Italy is just amazing, like amazing, man. Like I would fly there just to go eat some of their food, man. And just come
if you're
back.
on death row, you're like, go to Italy, grab me
Yeah,
something.
man. And anywhere, Rome, like you can go Naples. Oh man, yeah, like the food there is just amazing. Just amazing.
How does that stack up? I know you've only had one season in Chicago. How does that stack up to the food in Chicago that you've had?
Chicago is one of my favorite places to eat, like to find places, different restaurants and stuff like that. Chicago is really good. Where else? When they had a team in Houston, I really like Houston. I like Texas. Um, in New York, of course, like New York has great restaurants, man. Yeah, like I love New York. I know it's a little cliche, but I love New York. Favorite restaurant though, favorite restaurant was an Italian spot. I forgot the name of it in Washington, not far from DuPont Circle, but
Okay.
Washington D.C. Yeah, in Washington D.C.
Have you tried Chicago pizza and oven grinders?
Which one?
Chicago pizza and oven grinders. They got the chicken, not the chicken pot, the pizza pot pie.
No, I haven't. I haven't.
Sauce.
You have to send me that. Well, you have to write it down and send it to me on a DM or something. So I'll make sure I get to it. I'll make sure.
Most definitely. It's. I think I would say it's a staple. I would say it's a staple for Chicago. Yeah, I mean, it's something that you at least have to try.
Oh, I will. Trust me, I will. I'm a foodie, man, so I'll try anything.
I'm a foodie too, but to a fault. Like, does that make sense? Like, I'm fat. You know what I mean?
Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I'm just living my best life, James.
That's it, man. That is it.
That's right. James Wade, general manager and head coach of the Chicago Sky. We appreciate so much you giving us an hour of your time to stop by and talk WNBA basketball, food, and the nickname Coco. This has been so much fun. Thank you again for stopping by. We are so appreciative.
Thank you guys for having me, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing, man.
That's a huge compliment. Thank you. If there is a WNBA season this year, good luck. And you will definitely see us. You'll definitely hear us.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I got it. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you.
All right, see you guys. Bye.